Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Swai. You can also call me the promo guy. Today, we have Trevor Lee, all the way from the UK. And Trevor has over 35 years of experience in senior manager, director level, using his revenue generation and overall commercial experience to help business grow sales, deliver better presentations, and win more sales pitches. How you doing, Trevor?
Swire, I'm doing great. It's lovely to be on your show. So thank you very much for your kind invitation.
Would you please give the viewers a quick bio about yourself and a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I didn't. Yeah, as you said, it's been quite a long time in the things that I've been doing over the years. So I've been running my own kind of consultancy business for the last 8.5 years, and I specialize in helping organizations grow their revenues, and as part of that, deliver better, more successful presentations and sales pitches. So that's a synopsis of what I do. I do fill a gap for some organizations who don't have a sales or commercial director, and I do that for a couple of days a month. So I step into that role so they can work with someone of my experience and I guess, my expertise. But yeah, I'm also working with people, coaching them on their presentations and their sales pitches.
So one of the methods that you use, you're helping people get better with virtual presentation. I think 12 months into the pandemic, we all know why we need to do virtual presentation. But my question would be how, and any suggestion and tips for us, planning to do virtual presentations.
Well, I think the first thing you say, Swire, is absolutely right. We've had kind of 12 months to get used to the idea. And now, of course, I think we've got to the stage where we do need to be good. We need to be good because our clients expect it and our customers expect it. So I've got a kind of 7 Ps of presenting model, if you like. But the two things that stand out most for me in answer to your question about how can we get better, is down to our preparation and ultimately something in business we're not that good at very often, which is practice.
Okay. Yeah, because I was at an event yesterday. I listened to a speaker that whom I listened to in person before, and she was really engaging. But then on a virtual presentation, it's kind of a whole different ball game. For some people it might be technology. For some people it might be the microphone that you use. And sometimes, we all have been to a meeting that when the speaker talk, then we go like this, or you see people, trying to, lower the volume on the speaker. So is it more technical, or is it still being the PowerPoint that we use and the information that we prefer for the presentation?
Well, I think, Swire, if we're doing virtual presentations, we have to have a different approach. You're absolutely right, because I imagine that what really engaged you with the speaker when you saw them in person was the fact that they probably moved. I'm imagining they were good with their body language. They may have moved around, interacted with you, and all that sort of stuff. Now, when you're sitting and delivering, which is what most people do when they're virtually presented, I've started standing up now to do mine to bring that energy back to it. And I think that's the challenge, is that when we're in a room, you can see I'm already moving my hands around here now, but when we're in a room, we kind of, we can lift off the energy of the audience and we can add our own to it. And then there's that kind of collision of energy, which is great if you're a speaker, and therefore great for your audience. But virtually it can feel a bit flat, which is kind of, I think, what you're describing from your experience yesterday.
Yeah, I think so, because and then you don't get the feedback from the audience, because if you're a live presentation, people nodding, then you get more energy. People, kind of moving around, agreeing, then you get feed on from the energy. But then on virtually, I kind of look at the speaker, and then I specifically looked at all the audience. They kind of checked out for a little bit. They're looking down. Maybe they're looking at their monitor. But then for you as a speaker, when you look at the audience, you think that they're not paying attention. Then you kind of, going off track. I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I have 3 things that I try and work with people doing virtual presentations, and that's to make sure that they can engage their audience, they kind of educate them, and to a degree, they enthuse them. And I might chuck in a 4th one there occasionally, which is to entertain them. And I don't mean kind of fire eating or juggling or anything like that, but But I think the most important thing is that engagement, because sometimes it's easy to do it at the beginning, but then maintaining the momentum of that engagement can get harder as the presentation goes on, depending on how long you're presenting for. And I think part of that engagement is clearly what you're sharing during your virtual presentation. And if you're filling your slides with tons of stuff, which is what most people do, frankly, isn't it? Then, sitting there looking at, loads of slides with loads of stuff on them, you kind of think, oh God, what's next? So, and you might see a little thumbnail of the person presenting in the corner. So the balance, between if I'm coaching people in person, I say, use the slide as a prompt, not a script. And, think about standing or moving in front of the screen from time to time if the kit allows you, so that the focus is on you. You're the presenter. Now, when you're doing it virtually, of course, you lose that balance, because the majority of what people are seeing is the slide, and therefore the screen, and you're a little thumbnail in the corner. So you've got to fight hard for your attention, if you like. And one of the things you can really only do in that case is use your voice.
That's true. Which brings me to practicing for a presentation. I now you pointed out, I do remember that, I've done, speaking, in person before. I like to go there an hour early to make sure that, my computer plugs into their system, make sure that the microphone sound and how it sounds. So sometimes I'm a loud person, right? Sometimes I don't need to use the microphone. But then I think what sometimes we don't do at virtual presentation is we skip the practicing part, because we thought that we have all the information in our computer. All I have to do is hit share screen and all the information is going to show up. But then what would you suggest on practicing for virtual presentations?
Well, I think practicing business generally, Swire, is something that we don't do enough of, and we underestimate how important it is towards success. And you're right, with virtual presenting, it's very easy to think, oh, I've got the slides. As long as I know how to, share slides, click the right button down there. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. Great, and I'm away, and that's all I need to worry about. So I think there's a misconception that you, as you say, you can get away with doing less practice because you can see the slides coming up as they go and all that sort of stuff. So ironically, I think you probably need to do more practice than if you were delivering in person. And I think the big thing for me about practice is it grows your confidence in the way you present, and it's a good way of making sure you run on time as well, which, as we all know, is the bane of everybody's presentation. Is they always overrun, don't they? Or they largely overrun. And I think practice also gets you used to the kind of flow of your presentation, and you can spot the bits that don't really, if again, I say to people, well, if you're doing a presentation, the number one question, which is the kind of first P of my model, is purpose. Why are you presenting? What do you want the outcome to be? And when you're walking through your presentation, practicing it, then keep asking yourself that question. Does that slide help me achieve my purpose? Because if it doesn't, why have you got it in there, frankly? So there's so much you can benefit from practicing your presentation. And we all know that, if we practice, we're probably going to get better. Simple as that.
I think it's easier too practicing your presentation virtually, because for example, if you're on Zoom, you can record yourself.
Absolutely.
You can actually look at it yourself. Something you cannot do in an in-person presentation. And I got to warn you, for the first time you hear yourself speak and you listen to your voice, it's very weird experience. I've done it. Like, this is me. I thought I look a lot better. I thought I speak a lot better than, well, who's this? So it's a learning process. Going that and listen to, we are doing a podcast, right? Both of us doing a podcast, listening to myself speak. I have to edit myself out a lot of times. So it's kind of, and I agree with you. Practice, the more you practice, the better you can on a certain phrase that you do, maybe on a certain technical aspect in your presentation. The more you practice, the better you'll get.
Absolutely. I think it is fundamental. And you're right. We don't always like listening or watching ourselves, and we can find it distracting, and we can get a bit too picky or go, oh crikey, did I really say that? And one of the dangers of getting too obsessed with the way you come across when you're practicing in terms of the video and the audio is that you start to think, what, I should change the wording, or you drift towards thinking you need a script even, so that you kind of, you miss something out, or you didn't sound very perfect. And I would never advise that if you can help it. I always think have some notes. And of course, the more you practice, the more comfortable you feel in delivering the presentation without a load of notes or even a script. So it is a big thing. It is a big thing, Swire. And one of the top tips I can give your listeners in practice is always practice to deliver in 80 to 85% of the allocated time. So let's say you've got a 20-minute presentation. If you practice it, make sure you do it in 16 or 17. And the reason for that is that even if you're not taking questions on the go, chances are you'll still elaborate on a point, you'll start to enjoy it, you'll get a little bit carried away, more so than you will in practice. And suddenly 20 minutes has gone and you haven't got to your final sort of call to action summary. And then you've been hauled off and you didn't really finish properly, and the last thing you want is to say, oh, right, thanks very much, cheerio, because you've run out of time. So, practice, you've got to really be disciplined in practice as well, and make sure you don't, you get your timing right. But you try that 80 to 85% of time in practice.
That's good tips. You also have something called audience first approach. Can you tell us more about that, and how we could use the approach to get better presentations?
Yeah, well, I have a bit of fun with this one, Swire, to be honest, because a lot of presentations, I'm sure you've seen lots, and I'm sure your listeners have seen lots, where you sit down to a presentation and then suddenly it's, hey, look at us, this is how brilliant we are. And, oh, by the way, did we tell you about the awards we've won, or the massive, the great building we have, and we have great fun as a team, or look at the coffee machine, all that sort of stuff. So I think one of the challenges I have when I work with people is to say, look, no one's interested in all that. You might want to bring that in later, but don't forget, the reason you've got this far to make a presentation is that people will have done their research. We know that in business to business now, and lots of people quote this figure, that 70% of decisions are ultimately being made before there's any direct contact, before you even get to do your presentation. So focus your presentation on your client, because if you start talking about your client from the very first get-go, they'll be thinking, right, okay, this presentation is all about me. And it might be that you've delivered the same presentation to lots of other people, but ideally you want to make it feel very, very personalized. And that, it's all about me as a prospective client. It's not about you. You just happen to be the conduit for presenting it. Because I'm not interested in you ultimately. I'm interested in what you do for my business. That's what really motivates me to work with you. And if you're a nice person to work with, or a great person to work with, all the better. But sometimes I think, people forget that. They think they need to talk exclusively about themselves and sell themselves. And I disagree with that in a presentation. I think it's about explaining to the client, getting the client to visualize what it's going to be like, when your ideas are put into action, what it's going to be like, working, on those ideas, working on those tips, whatever it might be that you want to get over. So yeah, always think client first, you second.
It's kind of like in marketing, we figure out, who our ideal clients are. And, again, it's not about you. Obviously, you want to sell your product and services at some point, but then people care most about themselves. So if your content, make them feel like that, oh, it's made for me. This is, they're talking directly to me, they'll pay more attention than if you just, like you said, oh, this is the biggest machine that we have in the world, and we have the all the resources that I have. And sometimes people do fall into that, because they are accomplished, that they're successful, and especially people who have a lot of acronyms after their title. So any more tips for how we could use the approach? And I want to also get your advice on using PowerPoint. And we touch on something about not putting your entire website onto your slides, but are there other suggestions that you have?
Well, here's a challenge for your listeners, Swire, when it comes to PowerPoint, because we've all heard of the phrase, I'm sure, death by a PowerPoint. You've heard of that, I'm sure, and I'm sure most of your listeners have suffered that in some way, shape, or form. And so my tip is, when you put in a slide together, start with one word. And if you need more, then add them. Or just start with one image and focus on that. Because I think particularly when you're presenting virtually, your slides will help keep that audience engagement going. And if you put slide after slide on the screen, which is full of stuff, loads of words, loads of images, complicated graphics, your audience are going to think, well, I can't understand this. And then they start reading it, you start reading it, and it just drifts away, and you lose that momentum, you lose that energy in your presentation. And my other thing about PowerPoint, and this is a bit more controversial maybe, because if there are people listening to this, especially in corporate companies, I don't think you have to have your logo on every single slide or your kind of company template. By the time you get to slide 2, have you really forgotten who I am? So, and I think when you measure it, it takes up quite a lot of space as well. So if I'm putting if I want to make a big statement with a slide and I'm just using a single image, I want to fill that screen with that single image or that one word. And I don't want, 20% of the slide then still being the logos and things like that. So I think we have to get the balance right between thinking, PowerPoint is a creative tool. Yes, it is. But I think we also have to think that it's a prompt. It's not a script. And that's how I describe it. So if you want to avoid death by PowerPoint, keep the words off the slides, make them uncluttered, no jargon, no sentences, and just use them to support your whatever message you're telling your audience. Now, actually, when you're presenting in person, your slides are probably more of a prompt than a script, because they're there. People are focusing on you. So as we said earlier, most of the screen is your slide. So make the most of that space and get your message over in the least amount of words you can. I do a little test when I'm running presentation online workshops, and about when I get to about slide 70 of my presentation, where I'm sharing with people, I say, okay, so going to stop here. I just want you to put in the chat how many slides I've used. And the vast majority of people say 20 or 22 or 23. And when I say, no, I've used 70, they can't believe it. And the reason they can't believe it is because, the vast majority of my slides will be just an image or 2 or 3 words as a subtitle on the image. So that, so my message to your listeners, Swire, is come on, let's, don't make your presentation look like a brochure or a document. That's not what it is. A presentation is the key highlights of a message you want to get over, and use the PowerPoint to emphasize that, but don't let it take over, and don't get people sat there reading the slide, because that's not what you want.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what we do. And we have our presentation, let's say on the brochures, and we use the same graphics. We're lazy, and then we put it on a virtual presentation. I mean, you could put the same information, the same key point on it, but what I would suggest is simplify it. Instead of, like you said, start with one word, because I think one of the best presenter I've known is Steve Jobs. He never put up slides, have you read on it. He might put a picture, and then you focus back on him. He will use that picture for you to change your emotion. And then he'll use his words, like you said, to explain his point. So I know you might be an insurance company, or you might be in the financial industry. You have to put all those acronyms and all those disclaimer on there. It doesn't have to be on all the slides. And, no one wants to read the flow chart of what you present. You could tell people the flow chart using your words. So, I'm thinking sometimes I need to go to the eye doctor. You have to see all the words that they have. You're kind of seeing it, and you kind of lost some people there. So,
absolutely. And I think and it's a little harder to do in virtual, but certainly if you're presenting in person, which people will start to do again at some point, I'm sure. Ask yourself the question: do I really need slides? Because if you don't use slides, you don't have to worry about kit and all that sort of stuff if you're presenting in person. I think you do need slides when you're presenting virtually, because otherwise, if you've got 40 minutes of just you on the screen, or you and your colleagues, you need something to break it up and keep the audience interested. But if you're doing it in person, use props. Props are great. I use props all the time. I've got an old suitcase from 50, 100 years ago, and I fill it with all sorts of stuff, wetsuits, sponges, tambourines, and I bring them out, as to emphasize a point I'm making, rather than use a slide. And people always remember it. So, but go easy on the words on the PowerPoint slide would be my overall view to everybody there, Swire.
Yeah. How about presenting as a team? Because I think virtually has an advantage because I could pull in team members from all over the world, really. And then maybe my clients are all over the country, right? But then now you're able to do a team presentation wherever they are. And what are some of the tips you would suggest?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Virtual is geared up much better than in a sense in person for team presentations because it's so easy to bring in different people from all over the place. So I think the challenge with a team virtual presentation, as you may have experienced, is kind of synchronizing it so that if you've got a 40-minute presentation and 5 of you are doing 8 minutes each, trying to make it feel like it's flowing as one presentation rather than individual. I've got my 8 minutes, thanks very much, I'm done, over to you. So I think again, practice if you can, but again, no reason why you can't practice because you're all available virtually. So simple things like just making sure that as a team that you get the flow right, and also divvy up the roles when you start. And go back to that question: what do we want to get from this presentation? Here we are as a team. What's our best chance of success? So who's the best lead-off person that we've got? Because that lead-off person sets the pace, don't they? They get the audience engaged. Who can deliver the technical bits in the middle, which sometimes I think are the least important bits to a presentation? And then particularly, who's going to deliver the final summing up? The bit where you really want to take the opportunity to remind the audience of the great stuff you've shown them, how great it'll be to work with you, the call to action, whatever it is, that needs your best presenter, I think, to do that bit. So, yeah, not all presenters are going to be different. If you've got a team, you're going to have people who are better at different parts of it. The key to success is getting everybody in the right place. A bit like picking your sports team. You have to play to everybody's strengths if you can. And one of the things to look out for, Swa, when people are presenting as a team, is that just because you've got the highest job title in the organization doesn't mean you're the best presenter.
No?
and you might have a junior member of your team who is a phenomenal presenter. So get them involved, give them the chance, because it is a team presentation is exactly that. It's all about the team.
Yeah, I think like the point you just mentioned, there are people who just sound better. Just born with that. You can't argue with that. So there are people who read from a statement better, but there are people who answer technical questions better, and maybe they're thinking faster on the spot. So with your team, so you got to realize that okay, this person is good at reading the open statement that we have to give out. Right, this person know the product really well, so whenever there's a question, they will answer it. And then at the end, this is a person who knows how to motivate or how to close the people. Then with knowing what our pros and cons will be and what our advantages are, then you put in as a team, so that same mission, but then you have different voice, to draw people in, and not having me reading a script and people get tuned out.
Absolutely, yeah. I think again, if you've got a team, utilize the team to their best extent, in the same way you would as a team in any part of your business.
So let me bring it all together. Let's say I'm going to prepare for a virtual presentation. Where do I start? How much should I practice? And then any general tips for me to improve my virtual presentation?
Well, I would suggest, and I can send you this for the show notes. I can suggest that you would use something like the 7 P's of presenting model that I've got. And I'll quickly say, so the first step is your purpose. Why do you need to, what do you want to present? What do you want the outcome to be is the big question. Second question is the people. The second P is people. Who's in your audience? What do you know about them? So you can, again, make the presentation feel it's for them, not you. The third step is that overall preparation, sorting out the kit, sorting out the team, who's going to do what, all that sort of stuff. Number 4 is the planning, which is the content, the flow, the style of your presentation, and of course the timing as well. Number 5 would be PowerPoint, and I think number 5 is PowerPoint for a reason. So a lot of people start with PowerPoint as number 1. So, let's find the last one we did, let's change the logo on it and do that. So not a great idea. Then practice it, and then get out there and deliver it. And number 7 for me is delivery is the performance. And, it is a performance. Even if you're delivering virtually, you've got to be on your A game. You know, when you're delivering that virtual presentation, most people in business have an A game, but it's only there 5 or 10% of the time, because we don't need the A game when we're doing our admin or checking our prospecting lists or whatever we might be doing. But we do need it when we're interacting with clients, and we definitely need it when we're delivering a virtual presentation. So be the authentic you, but be the very best of you would be my thought on that, Swire.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we do at presentation, even we are salespeople, but then ultimately, I think we're kind of like actors, right? We're trying to present something, and when you see a good actor, they could play a president, or next time they could play a villain. They look like the role. You will see that I really don't like this person. I really admire this person in the movie. So I think virtual presentation, we gotta being judged on how we look and how we present, maybe our body language, our nonverbal kind of presentation. So I think it's tough, but then I think do record yourself a couple of times and see, and get feedback, from professional like you, Trevor, or even send it to your team member, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, I think those are simple thing that you can help and get some feedbacks. And you could actually do that easily with Zoom right now. You could just record yourself easy and just send it off to people.
Very much so. Yeah. And don't forget to use your voice, because it's the most important thing you've probably got virtually presenting. So you can emphasize a word or slow something down. You can use it in so many ways, but practice using it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people do is they know that business so well, so they're going fast, and then they kind of lost all the audience because they're not the expert at all in the industry. So they would assume that everyone knows what it is, and sometimes if you slow down, maybe people don't know nothing about what you're trying to say, and if you explain it, then people appreciate knowing that like what you said, audience first approach. You're actually caring about them and slowing down to explain the terms to them.
And don't forget how powerful the pause can be.
The pause?
Yeah, I just did one then. Because if you just, say something and then, stop, give your audience time to take it in, just a couple of seconds, and then move on again. Because sometimes, as you say, we're going so quick, the audience can't keep up. We've got to get the right pace for the audience. Start slowly, build up your pace, let the audience go with you. They'll get used to your pace. They'll follow you. You speed up, a bit like running on a treadmill. You start slowly, you build up the pace, your body adjusts, the audience adjusts in the same way.
That's good advice. Yeah, because sometimes, like for me, I always talk too fast, and then I gotta slow down. But slowing down and pausing is scary sometimes. If you hear crickets and you didn't know what to do.
And don't forget to have one of these handy, a little glass of water, because there will be times when you use your thought process, and you can just get back on it straight away, and it doesn't feel unnatural. The audience won't go, "What the hell's going on here now?" It's and you might need that. So it's a very important tool for virtual presenting.
Okay. So Trevor, if the listener want to get to know you better and want to reach out to you, what would be the best way?
Well, if you Google me, Trevor Lee Media, you'll find my website, and there's all the stuff about me on there that you can find, everything that's going on with my business and everything else. My 44 at 60 challenge, which is over my shoulder here. You might see my running shirt. I don't know when this podcast is going out, but on May the 22nd, I'm running 44 miles for the local children's hospice. So, I don't think I'll be doing any presenting the next day. But no, Trevor Lee Media, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, of course. Look me up on LinkedIn, Trevor Lee. You should be able to find me on LinkedIn as well. So that would be great.
Yeah, I'll put all the information on the show notes. And Trevor, really, thank you so much for coming on. We all do need to get better at virtual presentation. I don't think it's going away. It might be a skills that we can learn that we are able to reach anywhere in the world right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think it's a skill that you need now and for the future, without doubt.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, Swire. Thank you.
Bye.